Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Bitter Pill, the show where we discuss bitter pills of truth that many people don't want to hear, find difficult to swallow, and that the corporate media doesn't want you to know exist. Now, certainly the title of this video arguably is inflammatory or clickbaity, but I think it's a legitimate question to ask. In the case of Michael Tracey, someone who seems predisposed to disbelieve or doubt allegations of sexual misconduct, even though, according to criteria that experts on rape and sexual assault use, they have hallmarks of credibility. I made a case a couple of videos ago that Tara Reade's allegations against Joe Biden met those criteria, and I will make the case today that, at the very least, Michael Tracey, who's a well-known journalist, YouTube commentator, sort of on the left, although his politics are rather idiosyncratic. But I'll make the case that he demonstrates a lack of understanding of how to judge the credibility of such allegations, as well as a tendency to minimize their significance in some cases. It's almost like he doesn't empathize with those making the allegations. Now you might wonder, why am I picking on Michael Tracey? After all, didn't I just discuss a couple of weeks ago how the entire Democratic establishment exhibited a huge double standard in the way they reacted to Tara Reade's allegations that Joe Biden raped her, compared to how they reacted to the allegations against Brett Kavanaugh 2 years ago, or those against Donald Trump 4 years ago. Why am I singling him out? Well, I guess it's because I would have expected better from Michael Tracey than I would from the Democratic Party establishment. He's done some excellent reporting, exposing the ludicrousness of the Russiagate conspiracy theory. He's defended Julian Assange's record of truth-telling and exposing corruption, and excoriated the U.S. for arresting him. He has criticized U.S. foreign policy in a whole host of ways. And during the presidential campaign, he was a very staunch defender of Tulsi Gabbard against the many smear campaigns waged against her by the Democratic establishment. But, as I put it a little hyperbolically in a tweet a couple months ago, Tulsi Gabbard seems to be one of the few women Michael Tracey believes. Now, to be fair, Michael definitely believes Bill Cosby's accusers, saying, Occam's razor, 15 plus women all independently lying with nothing to gain, ? That's an outlandish conspiracy theory. And of course it's now 60 plus women. But anyway, seems like a perfectly reasonable point. However, Michael has minimized the significance of reported cases of sexual harassment by male politicians such as Al Franken and Joe Biden. So regarding the allegations of sexual harassment against Al Franken, he said, what exactly is there to, quote, investigate regarding Franken? And he characterized the allegations ultimately by 8 different women of sexual harassment involving groping and unwanted kissing and sniffing against Joe Biden that surfaced last April 2019, just prior to Biden announcing his candidacy. Tracey characterized this as hugging, and as manifestly non-sexual. That seems to be the wrong tweet there. He said he couldn't bring himself to care about them. Yeah, there we go. That's the one. Um, Now, who the hell does he think he is to decide that what's alleged is no big deal, that it's not something worth caring about? Um, Al Franken is accused of attempting to kiss women without their consent, excuse me, grabbing women by the breast or ass, and pantomiming grabbing a woman's breasts, which caught the attention of the public because it was photographed and went viral. How does Michael think that this kind of conduct, either Franken's or Biden's, that many women have alleged, how does he think that makes them feel? I don't suppose he's considering asking them, as a journalist who interviewed Al Franken's accusers did. One of the women who accused Franken of uh, attempting to kiss her, having just met her, um, that she felt stunned and incredulous. I felt demeaned. I felt put in my place. Another woman who said that Franken kissed her against her will and had a photo taken of him groping or acting as if he was groping her breasts while she slept, Leanne Tweeden, said that she felt disgusted and violated. Another accuser, Lindsay Menz, said she was shocked when Franken grabbed her ass while posing for a photograph with her. And many of Al Franken's accusers were, in fact, Democrats or liberals or even supporters of Franken at the time. As for the topic of the sexual harassment allegations against Joe Biden, contrary to a common opinion that appears to be shared by Michael Tracey, the allegations against Biden did not begin recently. Biden has had a reputation as someone who acted inappropriately toward women and girls for decades, according to a 2008 article by the late Alexander Coburn of Counterpunch magazine. Another Counterpunch editor, Jeffrey St. Clair, said that Biden had hit on the wife of a writer for his magazine. There was a Daily Show skit, which I alluded to a couple of weeks ago, about Biden's sexual harassment back in early 2015. And the Washington Post published an article entitled, "What Are We Going to Do About Creepy Uncle Joe Biden?" which described his long reputation as someone who touched women and girls in ways that made them uncomfortable. And there are photos and videos that you can find on YouTube or Google or elsewhere showing Biden making women and girls uncomfortable and saying highly inappropriate things to them that objectified or sexualized them, even children as young as 10, saying things to them like, "Don't date anybody till you're 30," or telling their brothers to keep the boys away from your sister. There were also reports from former Secret Service agents assigned to protect Joe Biden that female Secret Service agents went out of their way to avoid being alone with him, that he grabbed women's asses at parties, and that he paraded around his house naked when there were female Secret Service agents there protecting him, and his wife wasn't there, of course. And these allegations received widespread public attention. Last April, as I said, 8 women came forward with stories that he sexually harassed them and that he made them very uncomfortable. According to former Nevada Lieutenant Governor Lucy Flores, at a campaign event in 2014, without any warning, Biden came up behind her and grabbed her shoulder, smelled her hair, and planted a slow kiss on the back of her head. Remember, Michael characterizes this sort of behavior as hugging practices. Um, she said she had been so looking forward to him visiting and helping her campaign, and in that moment, all she could think of was how much she wanted to get away from him. Um, And there were assorted other allegations of a similar nature. I went through these a couple of weeks ago in another video. But there's a consistent pattern there that Biden made these women feel uncomfortable. Sophie Karasek says that at the Academy Awards ceremony in 2016, out of the blue, Biden held hands with her and put his forehead up against hers. She characterized the interaction as unwelcome, uncomfortable, and strange. And as you know, Tara Reade also said back in April of 2019 that Biden touched her in ways that made her uncomfortable. She didn't disclose the rape allegation at the time, but she disclosed other ways that he made her feel, like an object. She said that, for instance, he wanted her to serve drinks to an event attended by him and some colleagues because, according to a staffer who told her about it, he liked her legs. And the allegations continued after April 2019, something that Michael Tracey doesn't appear to be aware of, other than Tara Reade's allegations. In September of last year, Jessica Lee Collins said on Twitter that I was a student at the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C., when coerced and abducted by Deborah Palfrey, who trafficked me to Jeffrey Epstein and Andrew Windsor. I was trafficked to many, including John McCain, Joe Biden, and others in the White House today. She hasn't elaborated on her allegation thus far, but she appears to be implying that Joe Biden, among others, raped her. Shortly after Tara Reade made her rape allegation against Joe Biden back in late March this year, March 24th, was when she was interviewed by Katie Halper, an anonymous woman made another sexual assault allegation against Biden. She explained in detail why she wasn't willing to offer her name or provide a detailed account of what she says happened to her, saying, "If I go public, will I be called a liar? Will I be accused of being a Russian agent? Will my family and friends be attacked for corroborating my story? Will the media ignore me for weeks, followed by Alyssa Milano going on a podcast to suggest that that is a reason not to believe that it is true? Will the national media attempt to cast doubt upon my credibility? Will those on the short list to become Biden's vice presidential nominee remain quiet and hope this blows over? Will half the country brush me aside and claim that at least my assaulter isn't as bad as the current assaulter in chief, Donald Trump, of course? So far as I can see, there's absolutely no incentive to come forward. And, of course, these are all things that happened to Tara Reade when she came forward with her rape allegation in March of this year. And some of them also happened to the 8 women, including Reade, who accused Biden of various sorts of sexual harassment last April. And as she says, what's the incentive to come forward against a powerful man with these sorts of allegations? You're gonna get attacked. So, how plausible is it that there's going to be all these false allegations of sexual misconduct against powerful men, given the backlash that they're going to face, even if what they're saying is true? A little bit later, in April of this year, 2 more women came forward with sexual misconduct allegations against Joe Biden. An anonymous woman said that Biden had groped her, but didn't provide further details and wasn't willing to come forward and identify herself. Another woman, Ava Murray, said that a political event in 2008 that she and her aunt, who was running for Senate, attended, Biden was also in attendance. When introduced to her, Biden looked her up and down and asked her how old she was. When she told him she was 14, he told her that she was very well endowed for 14. All in all, then, including video footage and reports from people other than the women or girls Biden is said to have harassed or assaulted themselves, there are dozens of accounts of Biden conducting himself in a manner that doesn't respect women's or girls' boundaries and treats them as sex objects. And, again, there are very strong disincentives for women to make false sexual misconduct reports or claims, especially against someone who is powerful and well known like Joe Biden. So it's likely that most, if not all, of the claims by various women against Joe Biden are true. There's just too much to lose and too little to gain for doing such a thing. And to refer back to a point that Michael made a few years ago regarding Bill Casey's case, Occam's razor, man. All these women independently lying with nothing to gain and a lot to lose in terms of getting smeared and disbelieved. That's an outlandish conspiracy theory. Interesting. Now, irrespective of the merits of any individual allegation, we can apply that logic here and say that to claim that all of them are false is an outlandish conspiracy theory. And now Michael Tracey hasn't made that claim. He's focused laser-like on Tara Reade's case, but we'll talk more about that. But the bottom line is that irrespective of the merits of Tara Reade's specific allegation that she made this year, that she was raped by Joe Biden, there's so much evidence that Joe Biden has routinely acted inappropriately with women. It's absurd and outlandish to doubt it. And, it's also outlandish to dismiss it as hugging or as no big deal, given how uncomfortable some of these women themselves have said Joe Biden made them. Now, one thing that I couldn't help but noticing since Tara Reade's allegation came out, and ultimately Michael Tracey commented on it, is that he hasn't commented on any other allegation against Joe Biden since last April. Instead, he's focused exclusively on Tara Reade's rape allegation, expressing doubt and attempting to discredit her, ultimately expressing outright disbelief. So you can see here, everyone who credulously hyped the Tara Reade story should be embarrassed. And he links to an article he wrote alleging that there's reason to doubt her credibility. Going a little further, he says, you're still free to believe, quote unquote, Tara Reade at this point. You are also free to believe in the Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus. If you are declaring Tara Reade a, quote, survivor who must be believed, you are by necessity declaring Biden a rapist. There is zero reliable evidence corroborating that Biden raped Tara Reade, and in fact, all signs point to the allegation having been fabricated. They just got done promoting a fabricated rape claim. So now The Intercept has transitioned to blah, blah, blah. Like the Democratic wing of the mainstream media, Tracey didn't even comment at all on Tara Reade's allegation for several weeks after it happened. Actually, it was a month or so. Reade appeared on Katie Halper's show and did an interview with her on March 24th. And Michael finally mentioned the allegation on April 26th on Twitter by way of cryptically chastising, quote, certain online people for allegedly covering the story in an incredibly reckless and maddening way. So it's maddening that people would believe Tara Reade. A few weeks later, he tweeted that. A few days later, sorry. So claiming that, she lied, quote unquote, because she at first said that this wasn't a story about sexual misconduct last April when she talked about him harassing her. Whatever. Women often don't come forward with their full story right away. In fact, they often don't come out with it publicly for years and years, maybe never. It's not unusual. The next day, Tracey claimed to have found a discrepancy in her account, saying that on Halper's show, she had said she only told 3 people. And then later other witnesses came forward. But one thing that he doesn't mention here is that Tara said when she was interviewed by Katie Halper, she told 3 people at the time that it happened. She didn't say that she only told 3 people, period. And since Katie's interview with her, others have come forward. 5 other people presently have come forward to corroborate various aspects of her story, and a couple of others who corroborated related detail, a detail related to her story. And to the extent that in cases where Michael Tracey has commented on these corroborating witnesses, his response has been to dismiss the corroboration. So on May 7th, in response to a court document where Reade's ex-husband said that she had been traumatized by an experience she had while working with Biden, Tracey tweeted, "A 1996 court document from Tara Reade's ex-husband makes no mention of rape and doesn't even implicate Biden directly. Like most other evidence in this story that's falsely spun as, quote, corroboration, this undermines Reade's case rather than bolsters it." But what did that document actually say? I have an article about it here in front of us. It said that Reade told her ex, Theodore Dronin, about a problem she was having at work regarding sexual harassment in U.S. Senator Joe Biden's office. He doesn't say Joe Biden did it, but a whole bunch of other people do, so what the hell is the problem, Tracey? I don't get it. Dronin went on to say that she was traumatized by her experience. It was obvious that this event had a very traumatic effect on Tara Reade, and that she is still sensitive and affected by it today, he wrote. And that's a point that others, such as Tara's brother, have made, that she was very affected by this event, that she wasn't the same afterwards. She was not the same confident person that she had been. And she has said that as well, that this kind of broke her in a lot of ways. So, I just sort of wonder, does Michael think that Tara was traumatized by Joe Biden hugging her? Does he think that her ex-husband, who really had nothing to gain, it was an acrimonious relationship that ended with her, accusing him of, physically assaulting her, of battering her, and I think she wound up getting a restraining order against him. But so what the heck does he have to gain by, saying that she was traumatized by the experience she had in Joe Biden's office? And how on earth does Dronin's corroboration of Tara being sexually harassed in Joe Biden's office, and that whatever happened had a traumatic effect on her, how does that undermine her claim that Biden had also raped her, rather than uh, lend credence to it, make it seem more plausible? Fuck if I know. That makes no sense. And how does Dronin's near contemporaneous corroboration that Reade was sexually harassed and traumatized in Biden's office square with Tracey's claim that the allegations Reade and others made against Biden in April 2019 were manifestly non-sexual? How can you be traumatized by something that, yeah, maybe it made you uncomfortable, but it was manifestly unsexual, unless it was like somebody beating you up or something? Tracey claimed that he had never seen a more egregious case of confirmation bias than in how online progressive hyped Tara Reade's allegations. Confirmation bias, if you don't know, is a common tendency people have to look only for evidence that confirms what they already believe to be true. But what the hell is claiming that corroboration that Reade was harassed and traumatized while working for Biden undermines her claim that she was also raped by Biden, if not, confirmation bias? What is playing up the fact that Dronin didn't specifically say that it was Biden who traumatized her, when there were multiple other people who said that it was Biden, and there have been multiple other sexual harassment or assault allegations against Biden? What the fuck is that except confirmation bias? And not long after that, when Tracey learned that Reade said in a May 8th interview with Megyn Kelly that Joe Biden had said to her, "I want to fuck you," Tracey made a huge deal out of the fact that she hadn't said that in previous interviews, calling it odd and implying that she was changing her story by mentioning a previously unmentioned detail. That's yet another instance of confirmation bias by Michael Tracey, since the very plausible possibility that she was simply afraid to share that particular detail isn't, he doesn't mention that that's a possibility too. In fact, as I said, there are 8 people who've corroborated various aspects of what Reade has alleged. Her brother, her mother, her ex-husband, 2 anonymous friends, a former neighbor, a former co-worker, a former law school colleague, and also there were 2 interns that she supervised who confirm the related detail that she was demoted at work and no longer supervised them after when Tara said the alleged incidents of harassment occurred. Tara's ex-neighbor, Linda Lacoste, said that Tara told her about the sexual assault in the mid-90s, and Lacoste is actually a Biden supporter. 2 anonymous friends of Reade's also say that she told her about the assault many years ago, one of them at the time that it occurred, and the other a little over a decade later. Lorraine Sanchez, a co-worker of Reade's in the 1990s, said that Reade told her during that time period that Biden had sexually harassed her and caused her to be fired when she complained. Tara herself doesn't know, if Biden was directly responsible for her being fired, but he may have been. Joseph Backholm, a law school colleague, said that she told him the story in detail when they were in law school together about 10 years after the incident was alleged to have happened in the early 2000s. Backholm went on to say, "I was not in D.C. in 1993, and I cannot say what happened between Biden and Tara. But I can say that she made comments to me approximately 17 years ago that are consistent with what she is saying now. And she did so in a context in which there was no obvious motive to lie." And that's what I keep coming back to. What's the motivation for her lying? What proof does Michael Tracey or any of the other people who've claimed that Tara was lying, what proof do they have that she had any sort of motivation to lie? Backholm went on to say that he believed that Tara was telling the truth and that media coverage of her story in which no stone was left unturned to try and discredit her. And in contrast to that, Biden was treated with kid gloves. That's what bullies do, and it was an attempt to destroy her life. So all in all, Tara has more corroboration than Christine Blasey Ford did. And many people believe Ford, as did I. Even Michael Tracey himself said he found that Christine Ford's allegations were credible. And yet, even though Michael Tracey never made much of Ford's relative lack of corroborating witnesses, he went out of his way to question Tara Reade's degree of corroboration. So again and again, you see this double standard. And although, as I mentioned earlier, Tracey briefly quoted from Megyn Kelly's interview with her in the context of raising eyebrows about the fact that she mentioned a detail in the interview with Kelly that she hadn't mentioned in previous interviews. Because, after all, if women who allege someone assaulted them aren't completely consistent in every detail, then they must be lying, right? Or, we should doubt them just because they don't tell the story the same exact way every time. But in general, aside from another detail that he mentioned from Katie Halper's interview with Tara, any discussion of what Tara actually said is absent from what Michael Tracey has said, either on Twitter or in the article that he wrote about her, where he alleges that her claims have serious credibility problems. I certainly don't get the impression from having read that article that he actually watched or listened to any of these interviews in full. Instead, virtually the entire article, and I'll put a link so you can read it for yourself and see, is taken up by looking under every rock to find reasons to doubt Tara's story. Essentially trying to make the case that she's a dishonest person without ever actually recounting the story more than cursorily. And he never raises questions about Joe Biden's dishonesty. And in addition, Tracey misrepresents the slogan, "Believe Women," as meaning that people should automatically believe women's allegations unconditionally. What it actually means is that women's allegations should be listened to and carefully evaluated and taken seriously. But there's no indication whatsoever that Tracey ever took Tara Reade's allegations seriously enough to really listen to her with an open mind. And as I mentioned before, although he didn't express outright disbelief in the other allegations against Biden, his comments in April 2019 and his recent Captain Ahab-like focus on attempting to discredit Tara Reade's allegation that she made this year, to the exclusion of all the other allegations against Joe Biden, to me, these things suggest that he didn't take Tara's allegations seriously, and he didn't take those other women's allegations seriously either, especially when you call it hugging and say, why? Well, basically, he said, why should I take it seriously? So what would taking Tara's allegations seriously, as Tracey clearly didn't do, what would that look like? Well, first of all, it would entail listening to and reporting in detail on her allegations. It would also entail examining and discussing how experts on these sorts of allegations assess their credibility and how that applies to Tara's case. It would entail considering the implications of the fact that Joe Biden has refused to call for a search of the University of Delaware's records for Tara Reade's alleged harassment complaint, which is where it's believed to be. It would entail considering the implications of the fact that Biden has been accused of sexual misconduct by multiple women, which is what Michael Tracey did in weighing the probability that the allegations against Bill Cosby were true. It would entail considering the implications of the fact that Reade has far more corroborating witnesses than the vast majority of other rape accusers have. Because, all of those witnesses to her story who say that she told them about it many years ago and say many other things, are they all lying? What motive would they have to lie? And what motive would Tara have to lie to all of those people if she's the one who's lying? Or if she's also lying? Was she somehow psychic and planning to take down Joe Biden in the 2020 election when he was on the cusp of winning the nomination for president, when she told other people her story as far back as 1993? Taking Tara seriously will also entail considering the backlash that any woman faces when she comes forward with a sexual assault allegation against a powerful man. Any man, really, because I know women who were attacked and disbelieved when they came forward with rape allegations. But especially one as powerful as Joe Biden. Powerful men have a lot of people who are very motivated to protect them if an allegation like this comes up. Brett Kavanaugh had dozens of women come forward to say what a fine young man he was when he was in high school, and they knew him supposedly, and he's alleged to have attempted to rape Christine Blasey Ford. Harvey Weinstein, Bill Clinton, Bill Cosby, Donald Trump. You go down the list of powerful men who have been accused of sexual misconduct, and they all have had an army of defenders who attacked the women who accused them when the stories came out. Tracey seems a bit naive about this. Who has more motivation to lie? A powerful man who has something to hide in terms of his treatment of women, or accusers of that powerful man? Come on. And his take, with its laser focus on Tara Reade's credibility, begs the question of why he isn't considering the credibility of Joe Biden, who has a long record of proven lies about all sorts of things, rather than solely looking for reasons to doubt the credibility of Tara Reade, who, by the way, filed a police report about the Biden rape incident and therefore has gone on record with a sworn affidavit saying that he assaulted her. Neither Michael Tracey nor anyone else has proved that Reade has lied about anything. For instance, Tracey and others have accused Tara of lying about whether she had an undergraduate degree, which she would have been required to have evidence of in order to be admitted to law school. And she, in fact, went to law school and graduated with her JD. No one has definitively proved that she didn't graduate from college. Even if she didn't, even if there was some screw up where maybe she didn't actually have the credits to graduate, so she didn't technically have a degree. She may have thought that she did. There's no reason to just jump to the conclusion that she was deliberately misrepresenting her credentials, either recently or at any point. And Tracey never brings up the fact that Biden has been proven to have lied about his academic record and number of degrees, coincidentally, among many other things. He also plagiarized a campaign speech during his presidential campaign in 1988, had to drop out. He lied about being involved in the civil rights movement. He lied about the truck driver with whom his deceased wife had an auto accident, claimed that the truck driver was drunk, when in fact it was his wife who was drunk, but who ran a stop sign, causing the accident which killed her. Biden lied about being arrested with Nelson Mandela in South Africa. Who the hell makes up a lie like that? He lied about Iraq's weapons of mass destruction, as many other people did at the time of the Iraq War. He claimed that he'd never called for cutting Social Security when he's on video admitting that he called for cutting it, I think it was 5 times. And later he lied and said that he's never called for cutting Social Security. Just recently, he lied about having been endorsed by the NAACP. In fact, he's never been endorsed by the NAACP. But it's Tara Reade's credibility that we're supposed to doubt? Come the fuck on, Michael Tracey. Give me a break. None of the considerations that I've discussed here, either the lying or any of the other things that I've mentioned in the last few minutes, has made it into what Michael Tracey has said or written about the Tara Reade allegations against Joe Biden. Now, as I said, requirement number 1 in assessing the credibility of a rape allegation is listening to what the alleged victim has to say. We don't have time to listen to interviews with Tara in this episode, but I will include links in the description. I encourage you to listen to at least one of them. Anthony Zinkas, a social worker who's worked with rape victims for 30 years, says that he's talked with Tara at length. And this very experienced rape counselor is convinced that Tara is telling the truth. He's certain that she's telling the truth, that she has unmistakable signs of being traumatized, which her ex-husband also noticed, as did others. And in his view, she clearly attributed that traumatization to Joe Biden. She sounds like so many victims of sexual violence, he says, continuing, many people who believed Dr. Blasey Ford when she came forward with her allegations against Brett Kavanaugh are the same people now attempting to dismantle Tara Reade's story. Case in point, Michael Tracey. They only need to turn to Blasey Ford's testimony before the Senate to understand why Reade's story should be taken seriously. When senators asked why she couldn't remember linear details of her account with Kavanaugh, Blasey Ford, a professor of psychology at Palo Alto University and a research psychologist at Stanford School of Medicine, explained how the brain responds to trauma, sometimes creating disjointed memories, and how seemingly unimportant details can stand out, while other key details may be lost. And the details that the brain tends to focus on when it enters this fight, flee, or freeze mode during traumas are typically sensory details, sight, sounds, smells, etc., as well as feelings, more so than thoughts. So, in her account of what happened, Reade says that she remembers that her feet hurt from walking on a hard marble floor, that the wall felt cold when Biden pushed her up against it, that it was an unusually warm day, that the gym bag she was carrying to deliver to him was heavy. She also remembers wondering where the bag went when she had handed it to him, and suddenly he had both of his hands on her body. She said, "I remember my knee hurting because he had opened my legs with his knee, and our kneecaps clashed, so I felt like a sharp pain." So, if you're not familiar with the allegation, basically it's claimed that Biden, without any foreplay, so to speak, and without even really knowing her or knowing she had any interest in him, shoved her up against the wall and penetrated her with his fingers, as well as groped her and tried to kiss her. But anyway, she remembered the smell of dry cleaning, the smell of his sweat, and she remembered a few specific things he said to her, such as him asking her, "Do you want to go somewhere?" and "I want to fuck you." And after she pulled away from him, that he said, "Come on, man, I heard you liked me." She remembers feeling worried that she had done something wrong, that she had led him on somehow, and this was somehow her fault, and tried to think of what it could have been. She sensed that he was angry after she rejected him, and says that what he said near the end of the encounter is something that has haunted her ever since. She says that he pointed his finger at her and said, "You're nothing to me. Nothing." And these core details of her experience have remained very much the same in every single interview that she's given, other than specific wording of things that he said to her. Other details, such as the exact location where she said the assault took place or the exact date, she's not able to recall, and that's typical of the memories of trauma victims, as Christine Blasey Ford explained during her testimony against Brett Kavanaugh. The compellingness of Tara's story, the abundant corroboration of various aspects of it, the fact that no one has come up with any sort of plausible motive as to why she would have lied to people for decades about what allegedly happened to her, the fact that she came out with the harassment part of the story, as did 7 other women who said Biden had harassed them before Biden was even an announced presidential candidate, and the fact that there have been approximately a dozen allegations about Biden's misconduct with women, as well as numerous videos of him sexually harassing women and girls. All these things together make a solid case for the plausibility of Tara Reade's harassment and rape claims. Michael Tracey obsesses over alleged falsehoods by Reade about matters irrelevant to her claims about sexual misconduct. But his and other journalists' failure to engage in a balanced, objective assessment of all the relevant information, their failure to even discuss Reade's allegation at all for weeks after it became public on Katie Halper's show on March 24th, that just indisputably represents a colossal double standard. If there's circumstantial evidence that Reade lied about something, the logic, quote-unquote, goes, ergo her claim that Joe Biden raped her or that he sexually harassed her must be false. Nothing to see over there with those multiple other allegations that Biden sexually harassed or assaulted women. We'll just pretend they don't exist. Or if we're confronted with them, we'll just pretend that they have no bearing on the plausibility of Reade's rape allegation. Tracey didn't hesitate to deem Bill Cosby's accusers credible, or to deem Brett Kavanaugh's main accuser credible. He didn't make any attempt to go on a treasure hunt for reasons to question these women's credibility. But for some reason, and I'm really not sure exactly why, he failed all along to take not only Tara Reade, but any of Biden's accusers in any way seriously. And it's impossible to overstate how damaging it is to sexual harassment and assault victims when there are public expressions, like Michael Tracey's, of disbelief of an accuser and attacks on her credibility based on sketchy or inconclusive evidence. Because bear in mind, as I discussed a few weeks ago, that the evidence suggests that true allegations of sexual misconduct, or for that matter, true cases of sexual misconduct that its victims don't tell a soul about, and those are vastly more common than false allegations, which are extremely rare. So overwhelmingly, when people attack women as dishonest, when they make sexual assault or harassment allegations, and this happens almost every time a man is publicly accused of sexual misconduct. Almost every time. But overwhelmingly, when such an attack on an accuser's credibility is made, they're attacking an actual victim, someone who's telling the truth, the overwhelming majority of the time, as I discussed in episode 16. And for a variety of reasons that I also discussed in that episode, it's typical for victims to either not publicize what happened to them at all, or maybe even completely keep it to themselves, or wait a long time, often years or decades, before disclosing it publicly. And what's the number one reason they don't come forward? The virtual guarantee that there will be people like fucking Michael Tracey who don't believe them. And particularly in the case of women who have accused famous, powerful men of sexual misconduct, such as Tara Reade or Christine Blasey Ford, they're not only disbelieved, but their reputations are dragged through the mud. They may be stalked or doxxed or threatened with being raped, quote, for real. They may even receive death threats. And they'll likely be re-traumatized by such experiences. All of these things that I mentioned have happened to Tara Reade, they've happened to Christine Blasey Ford, they've happened to pretty much every woman who's accused a powerful man of sexual misconduct. So, folks, if you're going to publicly accuse women who say they've been sexually assaulted or of lying, you better be really damn sure that you're right. And there's no way in hell that Michael Tracey or any of the other people who've attacked Tara Reade can be sure that she's not telling the truth. So I'm wondering, Michael, do you care that you might be participating in a smear campaign against a true victim of rape, potentially causing psychological damage to her and making it even harder for women than it already is to come forward, particularly if the rapist is a powerful man? Do you care, Michael Tracey, that you might be participating in a witch hunt that could set the cause of women's rights back for years? That, the Me Too movement is going to become this. I support Joe Biden. Me too, me too, me too. I don't see any indication that Michael Tracey or Stacey Abrams or Amy Klobuchar, Kirsten Gillibrand, any of these people really give a flying fuck about women who've been sexually abused. And for that, all these people should be ashamed. If you don't like that assertion, show us a sign that you give a shit. Michael and the others, show us that you give a shit. That's all for this episode of The Bitter Pill. Please like, subscribe, and comment. And please give us a little love on Patreon. And remember, as always, I'll put lots of informative links in the description below. So I'll see you all next time.